Good day to everybody. It's Josh here. I wanted to make a video exploring some of the latest topics and the latest scientific breakthroughs because I was reading this article earlier about these astronomers who had discovered ripples from the early Big Bang in the origin of the early universe. And it's one of those events that all scientists work towards in their careers. And sometimes, very rarely, they get what they're looking for. And that's the problem with astronomy. People can spend decades looking for something and never actually find it. But this new discovery, they say, is one of the greatest scientific discoveries of our time. And it is confirming many of the theories, such as that Einstein held and others, about the early universe and how it reacted, and detecting gravitational waves from that early pressure. And those kind of articles are just amazing to me. But on top of that, while I was looking for, I like to look through and see what the latest things are. So when I Googled science news, the top article that came up was Texas teen's sexual affair with married science teacher ruined his future as a Marine. Now, I don't want to talk about that aspect of this. I'd like to remain within the boundaries of what I came here to talk about. But that really says a lot to me about what's going on in people's minds and what people find important. When people are trying to find the latest science news, they're finding out about science teachers who had an affair with a kid. This is the problem. We, as a society, have lost our desire to actually seek anything out other than who's sleeping with who or which celebrity got in trouble last week. But that's the human nature. That's what keeps us in line. That's what keeps us distracted. It's like saddening to see it happen. But is it anything that we can ever really change? And are people ever going to wake up? And then there's the aspect of whether or not the people who are actually interested in science and in knowledge and have any chance whatsoever of using that to help humanity when there's so much resistance to it. And science is a great example of something that's been threatened throughout history by people who were afraid of it. It was black magic or something in it. Things like gunpowder, which China had long before the West. It's not that the West couldn't have had gunpowder, it's probably just that we were afraid of it. We've always been afraid of things we don't understand, but now that science has a grasp on some things, we can at least start to build a future, at least a tolerable, endurable future for our children. And I've gone back and forth between how far we can go with science. I've been opposed to science for a while. Not opposed to science itself, but rather opposed to the paradigms of science and what it stands for, and how they won't allow any new ideas in. If it doesn't rely on the old system, even if it's right in your face, they're not going to believe it. It's a very familiar thing, a very familiar theme throughout history with many cultures, many groups, but there is a segment of the population of us that are totally open to anything that comes our way. And some people can't stand that. They consider them, I've been called a nothingist, even. One who believes in nothing, I guess, and that was a long time ago, but I remember that word because it was so funny to me. I'd never heard it. And I say, well, I have to be able to adjust my position constantly, otherwise I might miss information that could help me. This scientist, though, and what really got me on this article about these astronomers who were discovering the early universe, and they were looking into this, he says something to the effect of it. The discovery itself is not what's so magnificent. He said, what's magnificent is trying to prove your theory wrong as long as you can, and as hard as you can, and as honestly as you can, and still having it work out to be accurate. And that really hit home with me, because I know that that's what many scientists aspire to do. They come up with a theory, and then they throw a bunch of kinks in the theory, and they test every one to see if they can disprove it, because if it's not provable, not just once, but many times, it's always going to be in dispute. It doesn't mean that it's not accurate or not true. It just means it's always going to be in dispute. But even things that have been proven over and over are still in dispute by many people, and that's fine. People are going to believe what they want. But I'm grateful for one. As one person, one individual, I'm very grateful to all the scientists through history who have dedicated their time and energy to making discoveries of any kind, because really that's the nature of man, the curiosity of mankind. It's the curiosity to pick things apart until we can no longer pick them apart. Breaking things down to the atomic level. I do believe that that word atom, is a very sacred word, and the ancients even understood that the atom was the smallest part, the lowest common denominator among all objects. But I think even then they knew that it was all energy, it was all vibration. And as science starts to figure these things out, it's the only way that people are going to listen is if the scientists themselves, and honest with their companions, co-workers, those around them. Because I know that much of science is repressed in the name of fear of being ridiculed, fear of losing funding. And that's understandable. Unfortunately, many of the businesses, corporations, groups that fund the scientific research have preconceived notions about what they're going to find. Unfortunately, this often skews the results and biases the scientists and those who are funding the science towards one finding or another. A good example might be global warming, if there were particular interests involved in making it appear to be a hoax, or maybe not. And these are the things that humans have to work out, because on the macro level we have all these opinions being thrown at us, but we have to pick it apart, each one of us, to figure out what is really science and what is really just a bunch of speculation or paid garbage. But that's another reason why people need to be aware and educated on many, many subjects, so they're not just talking out their ass. And whenever I find myself lacking in a particular subject, I try to read up on it, because it really helps me to understand a little better where the person's coming from, so if we're talking about nuclear energy or something, I like to read up and find out what I'm talking about. But even then, you're still at the mercy of the people who did that scientific research and the writings that you're reading. So at that point, you still have to, basically what you're trying to do is find a consensus among many scientists, an agreed upon situation that extends beyond just your realm of understanding, beyond your country, beyond your group of scientists, something that everyone concurs with. But unfortunately, having that issue of having to have many scientists agree, that's what keeps some of this stuff that we might need, that's what keeps it, as many of the theories that are proposed are ignored because they don't have other scientists agreeing with them. So that's a conundrum in itself. Humans are always going to be at odds with one another, and they're always going to be in disagreement. I just can't see this, everyone floating around happy and agreeing all the time, because then everyone would agree that it's time to chill and no one would ever get back up. By having those little wild cards in life, that's what really keeps things interesting, I think. But I kind of sometimes think how nice it would be to be a scientist, how fun it would be to get into chemistry, be involved in science and scientific discoveries. Unfortunately, the amount of schooling required often runs a person in the poorhouse, and then they're stuck working for a company that, like I say, has shareholders and demands certain results. My hope for the future would be that the future of mankind, at least we could come together enough to make science a universal, agreed upon plan of action. We've done pretty well. The scientific method is flawed, but it's the best we have. Everything is flawed. I wouldn't say the method is flawed, but rather the way that we often apply it. But it is the best we have because just like many of these people like Descartes, people who knew that we really couldn't know anything for sure. We can't even know if we exist, but we have to have some sort of common agreement that yes, we exist. Okay, here we are. That's one thing we can all agree on, I think, is that we're here and we exist. Whether it's a dream or an illusion, it doesn't matter. The illusion's real enough because I wake up every day. So I'm not going to play games with myself and say, well, maybe perhaps we're in a dream or God's dream or man's dream. It doesn't matter. The whole point being, we are here, and we do have to get along. So what I would like to see, and this is maybe a pipe dream of my own, is a future where science comes together, working towards a betterment of mankind and a cause that can help everyone. I picture this, and I know it's just blowing smoke because it's never going to happen, but I guess I shouldn't say that because maybe it will. But to see science and all the applications that we have for really strong materials. You could take some of these military grade fibrous material tents out of some of these high quality Kevlars and nanofibers that would help people that live in countries where perhaps they're nomadic or perhaps they have large camps that they have to set up. You could have durable houses made out of just the thinnest material and done very well. You could have one device, a cellular phone type device that you would never need another one again. But the problem is that people don't want that. People want a constant change. They want a shift. They want something new all the time. But I think people are starting to change. They're starting to recycle, reuse. They're buying old used stuff. I go to Goodwill to shop for a lot of my things. If I need a toaster, a blender, why buy a new one? But, that's because it saves me money and it saves me from contributing to this mass marketing of junk that we have. And I want to see that science move to the point where all of science is not working for shareholders, but working for the people and working towards an understanding of how we can help feed and clothe the world. And some might say GMO crops are something that science has done for the world. Unfortunately, people are opposed to GMO crops, and the way they're going about it is very poor. I do not agree with GMOs, and I do not agree with Monsanto, and they sure as hell aren't helping the world. So that's what I'm saying, is that the science isn't being applied correctly. It's not being given to, it's being hoarded as a private industry. And that, my friends, is wrong. So let science out of the box, and everyone be a scientist. All of us are part of it, and we can all make discoveries together. I'm not going to leave it in the hands of a few individuals. We've done that for far too long. Peace out.